Hello, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tanisha Spain, and joining me in the studio today are the Jennifers, as promised, live and in person. And before we get into the items that they brought for show and tell, we'll have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what they do. So we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Fishburne. I'm a horticulture educator in the Logan, Menard, Sangamon counties, which is the Springfield, Lincoln, Petersburg area. I enjoy talking to folks about all types of gardening, but my favorite things are herbs and vegetables.
Herbs and vegetables. All right, Jennifer.
And I'm Jennifer Nelson. I am a horticulture instructor at the University of Illinois. And I also have a blog, groundedandgrowing.com, and I like to talk about anything horticulture related.
Excellent. All right. So you guys brought some great stuff. Jennifer Fishburne, we'll start with you.
All right. So I have for you this lovely rhubarb stalk here. This is not what you want to see with your rhubarb. You can see this is super tall. What we have here is a rhubarb that has started, it is flowered, and it'll want to produce seed. We don't want our rhubarb plants to do this because when they do, they're putting too much energy into this particular stalk and the seed heads and not as much into the stems, the parts that we want to eat. The flavor. So when we start to see this, we want to pull these out. So you could see what I showed you this morning. This just showed you that this has been pulled out of the ground. It'll bring with it a few leaves. These leaves you could eat. These are a little wilted right now. But you do want to get that removed from your garden because if you don't, like I said, it'll make the plant a little bit weaker. So the next question is, why did this happen? So this could be due to multiple types of plant stress is generally when this happens. It could be it needs divided. We want to do that about every 4 to 5 years if we have a healthy growing plant. Could be that it needs nutrients, so adding more fertilizer to the area. Do that in the spring with a well-composted manure. It could also be variety. So Canada Red and Valentine are two that tend to do this a little bit less.
Now, I noticed you said pull it up, not cut it.
Yeah.
What's the reason for that?
It just gets that whole stalk up and out.
So you just want that out.
Yeah,
Otherwise, will it regrow?
I don't know that it'll regrow necessarily. It's just always how I pull rhubarb. So I pull it out rather than cut it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, like Jen said, if you cut it off,
you're going to leave that stalk. If you do cut it, I would cut it at an angle, not flush with the plant. So cut it a little bit of an angle. You could do that as well. But I just kind of yank it out. Soil's good and wet right now. It should pull right out.
Perfect time. And we don't want our rhubarb going to seed.
Correct.
Noted. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Jennifer.
Okay, I brought a couple of examples, and I was looking for something to bring for show and tell, and I had my son along with me, and he did not want to shop for plants at that point. He's like, just pick something and let's go. But then I caught him. He was looking at some flowers, and he was deadheading. I'm like, are you deadheading those plants?
Oh, Andrew.
And he said, maybe. Like,
Nice.
You're a
Were
gardener.
you so proud?
Yes, I was. I was like, you're a gardener whether you like it or not. It's in the genes.
It's in the genes.
But I was looking for some things that were a little different to show. And this is a petunia called Blueberry Muffin. And I couldn't find any information on exactly what's doing this. It's got this cool star pattern with some white and green, but it's different on each flower. So there's got to be some sort of instability in the genetics it's not consistent. So that's kind of cool. I always get drawn to the oddballs. And then they had black petunias. Like, check this out. This one is called Black Magic.
It's gorgeous.
And I was looking up about black petunias, and nothing in nature is truly black. So it's either dark brown or dark purple. So in Flower's case, it's really dark purple, and you can kind of see it in the light here. So what they did was, there's a number of different black petunias. They breed them for high levels of anthocyanin, so that's usually in the reds to like bluish purples. So they're so saturated with that color that they appear black. So they have the red genes and the purple genes mixed together. It gives you the closest thing you can get to black.
The closest you can come.
But they were suggesting that a good color combo would be pink, yellow, or white with it. And I was like, that would look amazing in a pot. So,
that would look really pretty.
Yeah.
Very pretty. Now, does that take full sun, I'm imagining?
Just like a petunia,
just regular?
Just regular. Like this blueberry muffin's supposed to be really good mounding habit, so it shouldn't get all scraggly, at least not right away.
I'm going to try something different with petunias this year and try to get them to trail. I've never done that before, but I've heard some folks talking about using them as like a plant to spill out of the
Oh, yeah,
box.
I have.
They've always just been in pots for me, but I'm going to try that this year and see if it looks nice or if they get long and scraggly, because sometimes that happens too.
And sometimes I cut them back, like right in July. Sometimes just kind of give them a haircut, and that seems to kind of reinvigorate them. Give them a shot of fertilizer.
Noted. And deadhead.
And
right?
deadhead. Get my son over
Yes,
to your house.
to get him over to the house. Okay, thank you. We're back to you.
All right.
Got some veggies.
So I brought some veggies, and I have cabbage and broccoli here. What I want to talk about with these particular grouping of plants is these are plants that prefer the cooler temperatures. So it's perfect time. We should already have those in the ground. We'll get them in the ground pretty quickly. But the other part of that is any damage to the central part of that plant when it's small can cause it not to continue to grow. So it'll cause it to form a head, either with the cabbage or the broccoli. So keep that in mind, that when you're picking out these plants, you do want to look for the best healthy plants. Don't look for the bargains with the yellowing leaves and the dying plants. Those are not good bargains at that point. They probably won't grow very well. Also, with that, make sure that if you're growing anything in the Brassicaceae family, so your cauliflower, your broccoli, cabbage, kales, that you're making sure you have at least an inch of water on those per week. Water is very, very important. Inconsistent watering will result in poor growth of the plant and probably excess bitterness. So water's super important.
Do you have any problems with pests with these in your garden?
So for pests, yes, most definitely. As a spring crop in particular, they will get, usually cabbage worms, you'll start to see holes in the leaves. There's two ways to help with that. One is to prevent them, so covering them with a row cover, which is going to be something that's white generally and kind of see-through, but will keep the insects out. And then the other would be if they do get on the plant when they're small yet, you can either hand pick them off, or use BT Bacillus thuringiens on those.
Okay. All right. And did you want to talk about the yums?
I can talk about. I brought some treats. Yeah, these are lavender cookies. So
lavender is all the rage this year.
I guess. I know Starbucks.
Yeah, everyone's rolling out
honestly,
lavender.
I wasn't all that happy with the Starbucks one.
No.
But it seemed a little too sweet to me. But I probably shouldn't say that.
Everybody feeds me on this show, and I love it.
These are a butter cookie with lavender flowers in them. We had them as our a treat in my class at the end of the semester, because we talk about herbs and spices. And one of the things to point out is lavender is kind of tricky, because if you use a little too much, it tastes like you're eating a bar of soap. And the other thing is that you have to be careful when you're buying lavender that it's labeled for cooking.
Oh, I didn't know there was a difference.
Well, because sometimes you'd be buying it for its scent. Like it can be used for a number of different like lotions or perfumes or whatever.
Make sure you're getting
it's
the
not
right
for
one.
ingesting.
You can taste, and it's so funny. It's like I can taste the lavender, but now I can also smell it.
Yeah, and this lavender I bought at a tea shop here in Champaign. But if people are looking at their lavender in their yard and wanting to use it, you would dry the flowers and make sure you haven't put any kind of pesticide on them, and then you can use your own with no problem. But it seems to not last that long when I have it on the shelf, so I actually have the dried flowers sealed up in a bag in the freezer, and they keep a little longer.
Fresh longer.
Yeah, otherwise they seem to lose their scent.
Yum. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for baking.
You're welcome.
Your students and I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Jennifer. Okay, we've got your lovely flowers.
So just as the season's starting to wrap up, kind of for some of our spring blooming flowers, these are the last of my daffodils that I have. So daffodils, all types bloom at different times. This is one of the last ones I have. Just wanted to make note that if the seed heads stay on those, make sure you, both with tulips and hyacinths and on all types of spring bulbs, remove these seed heads, just clip them off, and that'll help put more energy into the bulb rather than putting energy into trying to make seeds. And I don't know, I just brought my pretty little iris. It's one of the first ones in my garden ready to bloom. Same thing with those. With iris, after they fade away, if you start to see like a seed head on there, make sure you pop that off, because again, it'll put energy into that rather than into the root system. So remove
Very
those.
pretty.
We have some of these little ones too, and they usually have a scent.
Yes.
Where the other ones, other daffodils don't.
This one does, and it's a little bit faded because they're off the tail end. But
Yeah.
yes.
Very pretty. Oh, I love this time of year. Which brings me to my next question. Not my question, but someone's question. Everyone's chomping at the bit to plant. So the $1 million question, ladies, is this, it's officially May. Can we put our stuff in?
So it depends on what stuff is.
Right, right. You can do it. You can do anything
Yes.
you want. The garden police is not going to come to your house. and
Okay,
issue
let me
you a ticket.
rephrase. Can we plant without having to get every bed sheet out of the house to cover the garden, or replant when it goes horribly wrong?
So we do not recommend that prior to Mother's Day is a general rule of thumb
Right.
that we use. Mother's Day isn't always the exact date of the frost-free date, but it's just something that most folks can remember very easily. That after that time, at least for central Illinois, that danger of frost would be passed.
Mother's Day, May 15th. But pay attention to the weather. We're not out of the woods yet. We're past the 50% mark. So
Yes.
like chances are greater than 50% that we won't have another frost, but it's not unheard of. Like this wacky weather is why we tell people not to plant so early, because even not freezing but getting chilly, it can be harmful to certain plants.
Yes.
Like basil will show frost damage or cold damage even if it hasn't gone down to 32.
2 years ago, I jumped the gun by 8 days, and I paid for it. Because we got a light frost, and I was out literally putting sheets and everything I could find in the house over
No
it.
sheets on the beds.
And so now I've learned my lesson, but it's, everything is starting to come up, and
Oh, I know.
the hostas are up, and it makes you want to get out there and get to
know
work.
it.
And
So
you know what? Oh, go
I
ahead.
was to say, what I would recommend though is that folks are wanting to plant your warm loving vegetables such as tomatoes and peppers and eggplants. Purchase those now, because the selection of course decreases as we go through the season. You might not find what you want later on, so purchase them now. If they're small, pot them up in a little bit bigger pot for a couple weeks and then put them out in the garden.
We're almost there.
Home
We're
stretch.
almost there. And speaking of spring and things coming up, so are the weeds.
Yes.
And so a lot of our folks have been writing in asking for advice to get rid of weeds. So we're going to package a few of these up and talk about thistle, creeping Charlie, and bindweed. So this is from Janet, Carol, and Owl. I'm sorry, not Owl. So how can I eradicate creeping Charlie? And there's no easy answer, correct?
No. These are all of your selection are really tough ones.
Oh no.
So with creeping Charlie, that's kind of an indicator. It's telling you that that's an area where you have a lot of shade. They like to be in that type of a situation. If you can tolerate it, I let it go in certain places because it does have a really nice flower to it. It's helpful for the pollinators. But if it's really bothering you, you have to keep in mind that you have to get every speck of that plant. So every little root that's there, you have to get it out. Hand digging is going to give you good options. There are some chemical control options as well. But it's an indicator. We call it an indicator weed. It's telling you that that's a a shady area, and it's usually in lawns where grass can't grow.
So maybe you could throw a hosta in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. This was like the #1 enemy of my dad. Like he fought this weed for years. And so a couple of things I learned during his battles against Creeping Charlie is it's easiest to pull when it's flowering because it's putting a lot of energy into flowers. So that's usually in like May, June.
Okay.
It's very easy to pull. Otherwise, it really hunkers down and it's hard to pull. It's also tough. A lot of the weed killers don't work very effectively because it's really bad at taking that weed killer from the leaf and translocating it to the root. So you might see some dieback on the top and you think you've won, but it's just coming back to fight
There's
another
still
day.
a lot going on underneath.
Yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So what my dad ended up doing, and God, he was just like ready to, he got a dethatching rake. He spent an entire summer, like one section at a time.
Oh my gosh,
But
that's
he did
dedication.
But he did it,
And it completely got
and
rid
he
of it.
completely got rid of it.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, he was fighting. It was coming over from a neighbor's.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
And then you get the chemical control out along the fence
Yeah,
line.
that's fine.
Never
That's
again.
fine. Never
All right,
again. Go
this
away.
is Al Januszewski. I told you I was going to pronounce it right. Al Januszewski has bindweed. We have bindweed growing in between our shrubs and decorative rocks. I've had it growing for 3 or 4 years. Can't get it under control. I've used everything, and it keeps coming back. So bindweed.
Yeah.
So again, really difficult control, even worse because the bindweed has a taproot that gets anywhere from a foot or more deep, and there's no way you're going to dig that out. It's nearly impossible. If you have a flower bed situation, I would probably just cover that really well with maybe a black plastic or something that's going to smother that area for like an entire season to do a solarization type thing to try to get rid of it. In between shrubs, though, it's going to be super difficult. You could try some chemical controls. If you do, you'll want to use like a foam brush and paint that on so you're not getting it onto your shrubs.
And so like the thought being that over time you're gonna just deplete the energy in that taproot.
Oh, wow.
Like every time it shows its face, hit it with
Yeah, you got to play the
chemical
long
control.
game with
Yeah,
these weeds.
and that's the same with the other one that's on the list here, thistle.
Yep,
that's
that thistle was the last
thing.
one.
Like I've read that it has roots that go down to like 6 feet. So like they are a problem, and they just keep coming back. And if you've had like any disturbance to the area, and same thing with bindweed and creeping Charlie, and it gets chopped up into bits, you just multiplied the population. But yeah, with the thistle, we have a small patch of it in our front yard, and it probably because of whatever was on that land before was probably farmland, and it was just probably there, and it comes up and we knock it back with some Roundup, and it'll be gone for a while, but we usually see it at least once a year.
Okay.
And the other thing with your thistle is if it is one that, of course, flowers and then drops seed, just make sure that you don't let it flower and drop seed, or remove those seed heads. And then if you see any new little baby plants, those are usually pretty easy to just take a soil knife and pop those right out. And I would do it now while the soil's good and wet, and that'll help get some control under that. But yes, difficult to control with chemicals for sure.
Okay, this sounds like you've got some work cut out for you, all 3 of you, to get those managed. Let's see, Cheryl wants to know, she's going to be planting perennials and loves spirea because it has lovely flowers and the leaves change colors during the season. She's got 2 bushes that she wants to plant in a sunny location. Is there anything else that she needs to be aware of before planting it?
Spirea are pretty tough. They're nice plants for the landscape. Full sun, best option.
Yes.
And just know what the height is so you're placing it appropriately in your landscape, what the ultimate height of that plant will be.
Yeah, they're super forgiving. I don't really have to do much to ours. Every other or every 3rd year we do a renewal pruning where we cut it back almost to the ground. We just did that this year. I'm sure the neighbors thought we were nuts. But what tends to happen with spirea over time is you tend to notice all the growth is like kind of on the outer edge, and it's kind of looks dead in the middle. We start seeing that, then think for the next year, like really early. We did ours in like early March. Come in and just chop it back, and it's real drastic. Just leave a little stub, and it comes back and it looks like this perfect little bush.
And you can tell if yours isn't fully leafed out by now, at least in central Illinois, then you probably do need to cut it back. It's probably just getting a little woody in there, and a good haircut will take care of that.
All the way down. How far did you leave? How much did you leave?
I only leave about.
I mean, it's a severe.
It's severe.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it looks like we had a clear cut situation
Got the
in our
flat
front
top,
yard.
huh?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So maybe cut it back and it'll be reinvigorated. Let's see. How do I pronounce this? Is it Liriope? Liriope, thank you. Annette says she wants to divide a large patch of Liriope. There are crocus bulbs that are also in there invading the area, and she's just wondering how to clean all of this up. Will I have to clean the lily turf divisions to bare root plants in order to remove the crocus bulbs from the soil ball?
We were kind of actually laughing about this a little bit because lily turf, Liriope, whatever you want to call it, Liriope, it's gone by many different names by folks, but it is a very, very tough ground cover that spreads very quickly. So I find it very interesting that something's actually competing with it to try to grow. And the crocus bulbs, as that foliage fades, it's just going to fade away. So I don't really see
I would just leave it.
I would leave it.
Because crocus blooms really early spring, and Liriope not till later in the summer. and I will tell you, I managed to kill it. I was trying to grow the variegated version of Loroipy, and that's not not as vigorous as the plain green one. So, but
It bit the dust.
I wouldn't take the time to separate them either. I would just leave it because they're flowering at different times, and it's not like it's not going to outcompete the.
It's not a true competition.
No.
Okay, so there you go. Just leave it. All right, now we're going on to pots. Let's see. Ed Kaplan wants to know how to keep squirrels from digging in his outdoor planters, and I'm all ears because I've got them too.
You could try hot pepper flakes or hot pepper like chili powder.
Oh, okay.
Because they don't like that. Birds can't taste it, but it's a solution if you've got squirrels in your bird feeder too, because birds can't taste the heat from the pepper. They don't have the receptors, but mammals like squirrels do. So that is one way you could keep them out. You can also try some exclusion, like hardware cloth types of things, or you had.
I've seen
you had
people
some
do
more
plastic forks.
Yeah,
The forks face up out of the pots. And I'm
they
just
sell
like,
and they sell this, like, I've used it to keep our cat from playing around in the pots inside. It's like a plastic mesh that has spikes, and you can cut it to fit your pot.
Okay.
You might try that.
I might try that. Okay. Because they are troublesome. And I find that
Once
they
they
find
decide.
a pot that they like every day. They dig in that
They
same
will
pot.
not leave it alone.
Nope.
You might move the pot. Maybe that would help.
I might try that. Okay. Speaking of pots, is it okay to put pool noodles in the bottom of big pots so they're not so heavy for filler material? Is that okay?
I think if that's what you got to use, yeah.
I've seen packing peanuts. I've seen newspaper.
Upside down pots. And,
Upside down pots, yeah.
like the clear water bottles or pop bottles.
Oh, okay.
Chopped up leaves. You have some,
Yeah.
some leaves from your lawn still. You can chop those up. Sweet gum balls would work well there.
Okay.
They're not gonna break down anytime soon.
Yeah, I would look at like things that you already have that you don't want to spend with before I would spend money. Like if you
Yes.
had an excess of pool noodles, then yeah, use those.
Just make sure whatever you're growing, you do leave some soil for the root system to grow a nice, deep root, maybe 12 inches about.
Yeah, that
That's what
would
I
be
would
about.
suggest.
Okay. Awesome. Let's take some Facebook questions. Let's see. Lots of cicada questions. So let's just generally get into that quickly. We've talked about it a few times, but folks are wanting to know if they need to cover trees. So just, do you have some cicada tips, I guess, for folks as we get closer and closer?
Well, I looked it up because there was some discussion of this at our house, and the four big ones, the four trees that they tend to go after are maple, ash, willow, and oak. And so if you don't have those trees, they're not going to tend to go on other trees. But if they're smaller than, they tend to lay their eggs on smaller than a pencil diameter. So a young tree would potentially be vulnerable.
Okay.
And think about if you had cicadas, 14 years or 17 years ago or whatever you're expecting in your area. If you had a ton of them back then, you're probably going to have a ton of them again. If you didn't have much,
Gotcha.
you're probably not going to have much again.
And a few folks have already started to cover theirs. It's a little early. You can wait a little bit to actually start to hear them. They'll only be around for about 4 to 6 weeks. But a lot of people are using like tulle,
Okay.
white tulle, something that's see-through that the light can still get through, but then wrapping the trees and making sure that they can't, go up the tree and get into it, but kind of
Make sure it's tight on
a little
there.
bit snug.
And some of the bird nettings can work.
Yeah,
Because
bird nettings.
Because they're big, right?
Yes.
They're not.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're not going to be able to get through.
Any kind of deterrent on particularly anything you've planted probably in the last 3 years are going to have somewhat smaller branches to them. It's a good investment. It's not,
Now,
not too
Taylor,
costly.
one of our production folks, she was saying at her family home there was a very mature tree that was chopped down. It was a very old tree, and now they planted a smaller tree in its spot. So the cicada are probably
Oh,
there.
yeah,
Oh,
most
yeah.
definitely.
okay.
yeah.
So Taylor,
Cover that one.
Get that tree covered, Taylor's mom and dad.
If you've made that kind of an investment, most people, that's a decent investment. A little bit of some kind of a netting to put over it is a very inexpensive
I believe they planted a
investment.
birch Birch, correct? Yes. So, all right. Well, we hope that tree makes it through this. Let's see. We got about 2 minutes left. Gary wants to know how you can control squash bugs. I love when you guys
say
laugh.
what you said before.
Move your garden to a different location, or don't plant squash that year. Sorry. Once squash bugs find your garden, no, and I try all kinds of debris removal in the fall. They're still there. They keep coming back. The only year I did not have squash bugs is when I put my squash in planters on my deck.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't find them right
They didn't
away.
find it that year.
So they did
Wow.
very, very well.
The only year I didn't have them was when I, do as I say, not as I do. I got my squash planted way late. And
you
so the
avoided
timing,
it.
Yes.
timing was all off. So I
Gotcha.
didn't, so I avoided them.
Yeah. So timing, living location, or don't plant them.
Just don't plant them at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing to remember is once they get into your garden and you start seeing them, start squishing them, start removing those egg cases right away. If you don't, those populations spread they go exponentially.
Okay. And that's the show. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming in. It's always a blast whenever we see you. And thank you so much for watching. If you've got questions for our panelists, send them in to yourgarden@gmail.com or just look us up on socials. Just search Mid-American Gardener. And we will see you next time. Good night.